So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. I'm super excited about this Zoom conversation. If you don't know me, my name is Miranda Fishbeck. I am Legacy Foundation's Community Engagement Coordinator. Exploring the primary election results, we traditionally host some version of this event after every election. Traditionally, it's in person, so we have made a few edits, but we're super excited. We've added a little bit more data this time around than previous years. We have a lot more conversation opportunities, so we're super excited to kick this off. So just a few things before we get started. If you have a question, please feel free to use the chat box along the way. I will be monitoring it as Sarah is presenting throughout this Zoom call. So at any point, if you have a question, please utilize the chat box. We will have some conversation time throughout the presentation. We're not going to wait for conversation at the end, but we probably will wait until all questions, unless it's something we really want to talk about during the conversation. I will probably hold all major questions until the end, just so we make sure we get through the presentation. As always, I am recording the presentation, and you will get a follow-up email with a lot of those questions answered in there if we don't get a chance to go through all of those, along with the recording and the PowerPoint deck. So don't feel like if you want to take any notes on the data, don't feel like you have to, because you will get it all at the end. We'll also share it all on our social media accounts. So if you are not familiar with Rise Northwest Indiana, it is the civic engagement program of the Legacy Foundation. So we are 110% nonpartisan. We are a nonprofit. We don't care who you vote for. We just want you to be voting and be an active civically engaged person within your communities. And we assist you to do that through different voter education materials. We do different kinds of programming, such as this Zoom call this evening. We partner with the League of Women Voters of the Calumet area every election to do nonpartisan candidate profiles on vote411.org. So we're all about just encouraging and engaging residents to be more active within their communities. So Sarah, I'm sure all of you know her, but if you don't, Sarah Ferraro is the rock star of Rise Northwest Indiana. She did found the program in 2017. She has a very extensive political campaign management list, as you can see on the screen right now. She also has very significant ties to the community. She is a former first grade teacher from Crown Point, and she is your go-to for all information. So I'm really excited to kick things off and pass it along to Sarah.
Yay, welcome everybody. As Miranda mentioned, we normally host something like this, and we invite a lot of our active folks to come and have pizza with us, but because of everything that's going on in the world and here locally, we are excited to host our, I believe, Miranda can correct me if I'm wrong, I think this is our third virtual event, virtual training. So I'm so excited that we've really grabbed more people into this sphere, and you all are getting more comfortable with it, because we can really share a lot more with you and have great conversation. So please utilize that chat, and Miranda's here to help manage all that too. So tonight, these are some things that we're going to try to get through. There's a lot, but we will do our best to answer questions and even follow up with you or share things on our social media. As you know, we just had a big primary. Can you believe it was less than a month ago? We have to remind ourselves of that. When Miranda and I chat, I'm like, man, it was not even a month ago that we had this primary. So because of everything changing with COVID and dates moving around, so we'll look at some of the data from that. We're also going to pull some results from, as you know, this is a presidential year, so we're going to try to compare and show you some things that happened in 2016. And we also pulled a little bit of data from 2018 too, to show you. We're going to try to dig in and talk about COVID and how this new world that we're in with the pandemic has affected not only elections, but maybe campaigns or other outreach that some of you are involved in. And then finally, provide some action steps to you that Rise kind of hones in on and would like to share with you to increase voter turnout, but just get your feedback along the way so that you can get more involved in your community. And as she mentioned, we have kind of planned some conversation questions to have along the way. So as you see there, we'll show you some interesting data. We'll talk about COVID coming up with the November election, and also break out and have some little conversation to try to break those barriers for November's election. So this next slide is, and if you want to take a screenshot of anything, this might be the one because I tell everybody, and even candidates that I prepare for their coming elections and their campaigns, knowing timelines and knowing when things are due, when things are happening along the way, that is probably your most critical piece. So if you're someone that's going to help other people either register to vote or help them answer some of these questions, I know a lot of you are already engaged in your communities or just engaged folks that want to help other people. These are important dates and deadlines. So coming up for the November election, Indiana always closes its voter registration window 29 days before the actual election. So November 3rd is the election, working back here, that last bubble. So the voter registration window will close October 5th. And that's the last day that people can register. There's paper registration forms, there's an online registration. We'll mention that throughout the presentation, indianavoters.com. That's probably your best way to go. You can also stop in to your county election office and get some help or give them a call. But you need to fill out a paper or register online if you're going to update your address and or register for the first time. And then October 22nd is the deadline, and probably a lot of you are interested to know what's going to happen with voting by mail. So October 22nd is the deadline to get those applications in. Now, Indiana has an application process. It's just a very simple one-page form. You have to fill in some things. And as we've noted here, 11:59 p.m. is the deadline on the 22nd of October. So we have been sharing out on our social media already how to access the form online. You can also print it off from indianavoters.com, the actual form, or pick up forms from your county election office, and they can be submitted by email, fax, drop them off in person. So, but if you have a question, I would suggest calling your county election office and get some updates if you need specific information. So, and then let's see, November 2nd, that's the day before the election. If you know anyone that needs to vote by travel board, so travel board is when someone is, homebound or very, very ill, they can't leave their home, or, senior folks that maybe absolutely cannot get out. The county will send a bipartisan team with a voting machine and help those folks vote. But they do also have to apply for that. So again, if you have questions about that or need to access the forms are online, either on the county website or indianavoters.com, but that application has to be in by the 2nd of November at noon. Or if you know someone that's a military member or going to be voting from overseas, that's the last day that they can apply. But for any of these dates, those three that I just mentioned, please don't wait. So if you know someone that needs to register, someone that wants to vote by mail, or if you're going to vote by mail, or if travel board, go ahead and get started now. That's kind of the best thing. I mean, as you know, we just went through a primary that was very heavy on voting by mail. So if that's something that you're interested in, I wouldn't wait. The window is open now to get those applications in. And then election day is November 3rd. So, and Miranda has highlighted in yellow for you how many days away all those things are. So it's a lot sooner around the corner than it feels like. So it's gonna be here before you know it. Oh, and I guess we need to mention that if you are voting by mail, that paper ballot must be into the county election office by noon on election day, November 3rd. So you may have seen we've shared this graphic out on our social media, just kind of a snapshot, some fast facts of this past primary here in Lake County. So um, RISE, as Miranda mentioned, is funded through the Legacy and Knight Foundations, and we primarily focus on Lake County. Now we do, anyone is welcome to attend our events, but all of our data and kind of things that we focus on is Lake County focus. So that's why the stuff that we're showing you today is Lake County data, but we're gonna do some comparisons between a few other counties that are in our similar nearby, or some other things that we wanted to show you. So let's see. Um, there are over 360,000 registered voters in Lake County. Lake County is the second largest county in Indiana of the 92 counties that we have. Just another fact that's not on here, there are about 4.5 million registered voters in Indiana as a whole. So, and I think Lake County has about almost 500,000 in population. I think it's like 484,000. So, of course, we could always register more people, but we're gonna just hone in right now and show you about how those people that are registered, did they vote? Did they not vote? So about 24% of them, 23.8, voted in this primary. And as we show here in the circle chart, 60 or 76% of them did not vote in the primary. And just some other numbers there for you about how many ballots were cast and then how many registered voters did not vote. And I believe Miranda has linked down below where this data you can look up yourself and kind of pull some numbers and do the math as well. But it comes right from our Lake County elections website.
And I actually just dropped that link into the chat box. So if anyone is interested in diving deeper into that data, I would recommend looking at that link, and you can actually pull it down by precincts. So you don't have to look at the high level data for the county. You can look specifically at your precincts.
Yes, yes. And so one of the biggest things that happened with this primary, as most of you know, is that with what was happening with the pandemic and is continuing in our worlds, you know, more people had the opportunity to vote by mail. So that meant a ballot was being mailed to them from their county election office. They could fill it out at home. There's directions inside. They fill it out and they mail it back. 31% of the people that did vote, of that almost 24%, chose to vote by mail. 59% voted on election day, 10% utilized early voting. As you all know, or hopefully you just experienced the fact that the primary was pushed back a whole month. So normally the date was supposed to be Tuesday, May 5th. It was pushed back to Tuesday, June 2nd. So there was about a whole extra month of time to get in the absentee applications. They moved that deadline back to the 21st of May to get the forms in. So there's a lot of moving parts and a lot of things that happened. I know in Lake County there were about 31,000 absentee ballots by mail requested. And here we show you that that's the number that were received back, that were mailed back, just over 26,000. Actually can't see the whole number, but and then over 50,000 people voted on election day. And then there was a shortened window for early voting because of how the governor and state election commission decided some of those dates were changing. Normally there's a whole month. So that gives folks a lot longer to utilize the 11 sites that we have around the county. Lake County is one of the counties, they do a great job with their early voting. And even on Thursdays, normally Thursdays is a late, they go until 7 p.m. So we only had about a week window of early voting right after Memorial Day. So 8,600 people. Oh, and then we want to show you that small box square in the middle where Miranda has the cursor right now. So a few other data points that we pulled that we thought were interesting were, so we had this big uptick in voting by mail, right? I mean, I voted by mail. I know Miranda and her family, a lot of her family members voted by mail. Um, in 2018, which was also a big year, there was a Senate race and a lot of other things going on. 3.2% of the people that voted by mail. In 2016, another presidential, and these are primaries. We're comparing primary to primary. So in 2016 primary, 2.7% of the voters that voted in Lake County voted by mail. So just showing you that the volume increased immensely of those ballots by mail. Not giving an opinion one way or another, just kind of showing you what happened and some of those numbers. All right, and this is where I mentioned that we really wanted to compare to a few other counties around us. And so Lake County, as I mentioned, where we live, and most of you on the call are from, we are the second largest county. And then Porter County, we also compared to, so there's some stats for Porter County and Marion County. So what's in Marion County? Indianapolis, and that's our state capital, and also where, you know, our state legislators convene to hold our government. So, and that is our largest county. So we wanted to just show you what's happening around us in the region area, plus compared to Marion County. So the stats there for 2020, then compared to, and this is primary to primary, and then to 2016 primary. And over to the side, you see, oh, and I also want to point out where you see the arrow down, there's kind of a lot going on this slide, but I love it. One awesome thing that Miranda's going to do is share some of these slides out, or parts of them, on our social media, so that we can talk about them a little bit more, and even people that can't be here today could get engaged that way. So Lake County had a decrease of 10.5%. Less people turned out for this primary than in 2016. Porter County was down 13.5%, and Marion County was down 10.8%. So not really going to go into the whys right now. I have some thoughts spinning around in my head, and I'm sure all of you do too. Feel free to talk in the chat or mention something, but we do have some topic questions coming up. But before we go, these boxes to the side, this is kind of why we pulled these counties. So Lake County, as I mentioned in the prior slide, yay, I'm glad I was close, 485,000. So the population, so we're just showing you how big, you know, the counties are that we pulled out. So Porter County does have a less, you know, their population is less, and their registered voters are, I think they have about 125,000 registered voters. But, you know, obviously that's a county that's right next door to us. There's a lot of back and forth. And then Marion, we need to pay attention there. So, and we were able to pull the statewide turnout, which again, the election was less than a month away, or happened less than a month ago. We're down 14% the turnout statewide compared to 2016. Again, presidential to presidential in that comparison. So about 24%, and in 2016, 38%. So I love this slide. There's a lot on it, but we're going to move on for now, and we will talk about a few other things. Okay. So here we have, Miranda and I wanted to share with you kind of some of the races that were on your ballot. And I was kind of thinking, Miranda, we trying to remind everybody what was on your ballot. Obviously, everybody probably hopefully voted and remembers that US president. This was a presidential primary. But then we had here in the first district, which is all of Lake County, all of Porter County, and part of LaPorte, an open race for our first district congressional seat. So we're just showing you kind of the popular races that people voted on. And then we're excited to note that in Lake County, the county races were highly voted on. So we had a recorder race that was highly contested, a coroner race, and a surveyor race. And I think our surveyor is actually on the Zoom with us. Yay! um, so just to go over some of the stats. Now we're showing you, we didn't break out for you, which you can in the links that Miranda's sharing with you in the chat. You can look at how many Republicans or Democrats voted in each one of these, or based on the candidates that you're following. But we just took totals, so total votes, and kind of ranked where people fell. So, I mean, as you know, on the presidential side, there were less Republicans running for president than Democrats listed, at least on the ballot. For U.S. Congress, I know we had 20 total people, 6 Republicans, 14 Democrats. And in Indiana, I'm sure all of you know that you have to pick a party when you vote in the primary. So you were only given the folks that you chose, of the party ballot that you chose. So I guess we were happy to see that, people are voting for president, but then we want them to kind of move down the ballot. And of the total people that were voting, of the total voters, 16.3% of them did not vote for recorder. 33% did not make a selection for coroner. And then we're just noting that 42% didn't vote for a surveyor, but Bill didn't have an opponent, our wonderful surveyor, Mr. Emerson. So
Sarah, can you check those numbers again? I don't know.
yeah. So what was I gonna say? So yeah, I don't know, Miranda, did you have anything you wanted to chime in on here?
Yeah, I mean, I think on the left-hand column, it's not surprising. We pooled the top 5 races that had the most total votes, and it's not surprising that you have your president, your U.S. rep position, and then 3 county seats. But it is concerning, and specifically the recorder, because there were both Republicans and Democrats on the ballot. When you get down to the surveyor, obviously, yeah, some people might feel like they don't need to select Mr. Emerson's name on it. But when you look at the recorder seats, that's a big chunk of people that are not completing their ballots. And we don't want the same thing to happen come November when they are selecting someone from one of the parties and they do see both names. Are they going to be confused? Are they not voting because they don't know the names? Are they not voting because they don't know what the position does? Are they not voting because they don't think it's important to them? So I think there's a deeper conversation that needs to be had of why are people not completing their ballots? Which, Sarah, if you're done with this slide, that kind of
yes.
feeds into the next slide. So this is our first conversation slide, and then we'll have 2 more later on in the presentation. So I have a few conversation questions. We do not have to utilize them, but I put them on there just to kind of get you thinking about some of the topic areas that we were thinking about when we were making the data section of this presentation. So I would like to have you all chime in and have an open conversation. Please utilize, at least to start, let's utilize the raise hand button, and I will unmute you. I think you might have to unmute yourself as well. But then once we start the conversation, if anyone wants to just start talking, they're welcome to do so. And I would like to spend about 5 to 8 minutes on this. So we are on a time crunch, but I would like to have a pretty good conversation about this. So we will start with Elizabeth. Elizabeth, I did just unmute you.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes. Okay, I was thinking they don't move down the ballot because of they don't take the time to read it. I always tell people to read the ballot, and sometimes they don't. They might not even know their candidate, and that is a concern also. And that would entail the candidates going out and introducing themselves, but still, they might not know their candidate as well. So that would just be, just not knowing what else is on the ballot for them. That's all.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And, we do work with Vote 411, but that is only just one source. And I think voters physically meeting their candidates means so much more. I agree with you. We do have a few comments in the chat from Judy. She said not enough information in the media regarding candidates for the county races. And then Rebecca stated that she does not feel that people know who's on the ballot. And that was something, referring to Judy's comment, that was something that Sarah and I have talked to, and we do actually mention it later on in this presentation. And we feel because there was so much going on, specifically this year, we know media coverage is difficult in our area when it comes to elections because of where we're at. We get a lot of Chicago election information, which confuses a lot of people, unfortunately. And so, but especially with COVID, a lot of the news sources that would potentially be doing various candidate stories or pushing out information, their focus was unfortunately turned to COVID. And we noticed when we were looking up different sources before the election, it was way more sparse than normal. And we already don't have that much. So going from a little bit to barely nothing, it's not a good direction.
Yeah, I just want to remind all of you that some of you are writing awesome things in the chat. So if you want to make sure to read what everybody's sharing. And I know Miranda's reading some of them. We definitely agree with that media point. The media seemed to just be gobbled up by what was happening locally and nationally with the pandemic. So, and I just forgot, I see in the notes here, Miranda, that recorder race, that 16.3% of people not voting for that meant about 14,000 people in Lake County just decided to not make a selection there. So it just makes you think, just like some of you are saying in the chat, do they not know enough about the candidate? Do they not know enough about the office? Are they just, personally, I don't like calling something a presidential primary. People just thinking they're just going to pick president and then that's it. We have so many important offices in the county that we need to make selections on for people that are running. So,
is anyone surprised by the data that we mentioned?
Hi, it's Betsy. Yeah. I mean, because of COVID, that explains it, hopefully. But also, aiming towards November, it definitely gives us work to do and planning to do. But yeah, I mean, those numbers that turnout's pretty low. So yes, I'm surprised.
And then Brandon, if you'd like to unmute yourself.
Awesome. So yeah, for primary elections, I'm not really surprised that voter turnout is always low. I guess the fact that since it's May, not a lot of people are that motivated to go out until November comes. A lot of people just don't know that primaries are, like, how I call it, a beauty contest. You're voting for the person to make it to the final round to make it to the November ballot. So yeah, to me, looking at past races, primaries are always going to be lowest no matter what.
Yeah, I have to say, Miranda, I don't know if everybody can hear me, but I agree with Brandon on that. So if you dig deep into what primaries are all about, there's a lot of education that kind of needs to happen as to why we have a primary and select people. So yeah, Brandon's spot on with that. Sometimes other states have had their primaries much earlier, and so then folks are kind of tuned out when Indiana's comes around, especially in a year that's a presidential year. So I'm glad we're able to share some of this with you, and make sure that if you want to, you dig into the data yourself. We gave you some of the links, and we'll put more in the chat too.
Yeah, and if you are looking at the data, or if you're looking for a very specific piece, of the data and you're not finding it on the link that I sent you, please send us a Facebook message, send us an email, and we'll help you get that data point that you're looking for. I'm going to share a few other websites in the chat box along with the follow-up email after this presentation, but there's a lot of data out there and it could get overwhelming for someone. So if you're looking for something very specific and you don't see it right away, feel free to ask us.
Hey Miranda, before we move on, I guess thinking about that number 2 question for everybody, I don't know that I'm completely surprised by everything, especially the turnout being lower. As Brandon mentioned, people don't always vote in primaries. And I see some of your comments, all of you are making about people having to pick a party. But, now's the time. This is why we're sharing the timeline with you of those dates coming up so that we can all utilize this time that we have now to get more people registered or get people engaged to know to fill out that absentee application.
Yes. Eric, if you would like to unmute yourself, and then Eric will probably be the last one so we can get to all the other parts.
Hey everyone. Yeah, I think like one of the reasons why I'm not surprised is because so many people had issues getting their ballots. I know my wife had a hard time getting hers, and just all these hoops you would have had to go through. If we didn't push back on that, we would have missed the deadline to get. I think that might have played a part in lower turnout.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, there was a lot of new factors for a lot of people, and I think that definitely played a role in it also. And finally, Sarah, what you said about question 2, I'm actually surprised because I hate to say it, but Lake County always does so poor in our voter turnout compared to the state. And I was actually very excited that we had a less negative percentage than the statewide. And it's a horrible thing to say, but I was actually expecting us to be either on par with the decreased voter turnout compared to 2016, but we actually were a few percentage points above the state average. So not that that's something to be proud of, but we're doing better than what we have in the past, because we're usually one of the lowest in voter turnouts in the state.
And that's why Sarah and Ryan in 2017 started RISE, because we really wanted more people. It's about those, not only registering more people, you guys, but getting those people that are registered and just haven't been voting, getting them to utilize their voice at the ballot box, but then going beyond and taking some extra steps and getting to know who and what is on your ballot. So that's what this is all about. And yeah, that's exactly the point I wanted to mention, and I just lost it on my notes here. But yeah, we're glad to see that in comparison to the state average, we're a little bit higher. So
okay, so we're going to move on to the next section, which is going to be briefer than the data section, but it's talking all about how COVID impacted the 2020 elections, both negatively, and there are a few positives from it.
Yes, and thank you guys again so much for utilizing that chat. We're kind of getting to know each other too by the some of the things that you're sharing, and if you have anything that you want to share there, go right ahead. So as you know, in this primary that was then moved, back about a month, we are dealing with COVID-19. So that's probably going to be a lasting thing going into the fall. We just don't know some of the things that were going to be happening. So this part of the presentation, we're going to talk about what happened and then kind of get your feedback going into the fall election, some things that you would like to see, or maybe some action steps that we can take together. So just some things that RISE came up with that we thought were positive, and I still think are positive. The increased accessibility of public meetings. That includes your city council, your election boards. We're holding, and even still are holding, meetings on Zoom. And so more people are tuning in to the Facebook Live, to the Zoom, because they're at home, they're working from home, or they're just able to catch some things. So that's great. And we're trying to share that out as much as we can too. I know even the State Election Commission was using Zoom. I'm not sure how much longer that will continue, but that was a great tool that happened to share more information out. Always in favor of that. Number 2, with our positives, we just put down, I know most of you knew about the expanded vote by mail, just meaning there was no fault absentee. You didn't have to choose a reason that you were going to vote by mail. That was just for the primary. We don't know exactly what's going to happen for the fall, but the selections for choosing a reason are still on the application for the fall. But that was great that happened for the primary, and yay for Indiana and the Election Commission and the governor for getting that done. And then they expanded to make an online voter portal. I don't know if many of you utilized it. If you haven't, it's opened and even expanded it further. They added a couple of bells and whistles that makes it easier to use. So you can apply for your absentee application, your absentee ballot completely online. So that's through indianavoters.com, and then you log into your voter portal. And then the last thing as a positive, brought some, even though COVID is, a time of a lot of unknowns, brought awareness around voting by mail as an opportunity for future voting. So a lot more people, as we saw, 31% of the people that did vote were voting by mail. So just a lot more opportunity to talk about what voting by mail is and what other states are doing with voting by mail and things like that. So hopefully some of those things can continue. Negatives, and I'm sure a lot of you would agree with this, these are just things RISE came up with. The primary itself was delayed. And so, and again, this relates to number 2, creating confusion for voters because those dates were moved. And so then how do you get the information out? It's all this train of trying to, tell people what's going on and utilize sources that can share the information. Some fear, number 3, and going to polling locations. What am I going to do? I don't want to leave my home. Just kind of that unknown. Shortened early voting. This is one thing RISE really likes to share, is that, Lake County does a great job with their early voting. There's 11 sites, but because the state decided on that shortened window, there was just, not even a week of early voting that last week of May. So, and again, a lot of you have mentioned some of these things already in the chat. And number 5, less coverage on our local media or even statewide media. I mean, honestly, our county races did not get much coverage. And so that was really a negative impact. The unknown impact of COVID-19 for November's election. So just get some things to kind of get us talking for the next couple of slides. So right now we're just kind of uncertain with the expanded vote by mail that happened in the primary. Those things that the state election commission, there is an election commission, a bipartisan board that meets, they voted to kind of change some Indiana code. They wrote a code that changed in March and then another part of April, I believe. But, that was just for that time, and they had windows on that. So right now, if you're going to vote by mail, you'll have to choose a reason. Let's see. We're just not certain with what's happening with the pandemic and a number of cases, and county by county, place by place. As we mentioned earlier, the timelines and deadlines could change. And then it's always tough getting information out from people or to people. I know one thing that happened this last election, some elected officials were trying their best and they sent out a postcard to people telling them to call the county election office, which is great. But by the time that a form is mailed to you and you turn around and either mail that back or something, and offices were closed down and people couldn't get into them, it was just very hard to get through this process that utilizes our U.S. postal system. So that made it tough. That made it very tough. So if you all know anyone that does need either travel board or voting by mail, we've got to help each other to get the word out and talk about it.
Okay, time for another short chat. And we do actually have a good conversation going in the chat box between
I'm excited to read it.
with Betsy and Judy. And so please, I would like you all to share that information, specifically talking about seniors, and then also Bill's comment. So if you would like to unmute yourself and talk about that, but really, what can we do to help voters plan ahead for November's election? We don't know if they're going to expand vote by mail, and from what we're hearing, most likely they're not going to. So what can we do to make sure everyone is comfortable? Yes, seniors is a big issue because we were pushing people to utilize the online system to submit their forms. And if you don't have a computer, if you don't have the internet, and not even just seniors, but anybody in the county, we do have a very large population that lacks internet connectivity. So how can we assist those individuals to make sure that they are comfortable and prepared? So I don't know if Betsy or Judy, if either of you would like to unmute yourself and talk about the senior option. And then Bill, if you'd like to unmute yourself to talk about your idea for a mobile kiosk.
Hi, this is Judy. And for my candidate that I was helping with, I did a lot of phone calls and early, well, throughout, but especially early while they could still get the mail-in ballots or mail-in applications sent to them. And so that helped a lot of people know how to do it, just with a phone call. And I think, I know that's hard to reach out to everybody, but if everybody who voted this in the primary had some kind of way to be reached to help them learn, like, okay, here's what you need to do for November, that would be a great thing to do. And yeah, like I had said, the library, and I love to hear more about what Bill would think about doing, so they have a place to go. Because I know most of the people I talked to, the seniors, did not have any kind of internet or access to go do that by themselves. It was all talk to them, mail them an application, and then, give them my phone number if they needed any help with what they're supposed to do next.
I will tell you guys that the county, at least I can speak for Lake County's election office, their staff is rather large, and they do have a couple of staff members that work specifically to reach out to the, nursing homes or senior living center kind of places where there's someone that's the activities director that works with people that can go around and either help get them registered or help do the travel board application or the vote by mail application. Now, obviously that was tough with COVID because then they were having to call back and forth if they had questions. I'm speaking between the county and these 30 to 38 places that they call around our county, senior places. Some of that is happening, but it's just very tough to, with the number of staff in the large county, at least just speaking to Lake County, how large of a county it is. So I'm sure all of us, if there's other organizations out there that could help with that, I would love to see some partnerships happen. We do have to think of, our seniors are very obviously vulnerable with COVID, so we have to be very careful. And I like the suggestions about kiosks, because if there's someone there to help them with the online, they could apply online. They just could be walked through the steps. And for the November election, you don't have to pick a party ballot. So you just would have to select a reason. So
Bill, would you like to talk about your mobile kiosk opportunity?
Sure. The next thing is our senior population is growing by day. I'm a senior, or quickly becoming one. So we have to make sure that they have equal rights to vote, equal access to vote, rather. And I know Porter County has and I'm not sure how it went this election cycle, but with mobile voting. But perhaps just kiosks that people can take laptops that they could take in the senior centers if we get clearance to go into senior centers, or libraries. And that's my thought, is just make it more accessible for the seniors. But the key fact there is education and making sure there's volunteers there to help them out with the portal. But we have to do something, because that is a growing population, and those are votes that will be unchecked if we don't do something.
Absolutely, Bill. And I'm very interested to learn more about Porter County's mobile voting bus. I thought it was a really cool idea when I read the article about it. So I would love to do some follow up with their office just to see how it went, to see how it was perceived in the community, and see if they did see an increase because of it in certain areas. Because I know they were kind of targeting certain communities for it. I will say, from a legacy perspective, I have worked with, and I'm currently working with, for census outreach, with some of the libraries that have tech mobiles. You know, Gary has a fantastic tech mobile right now, and we're taking it to different events, and they're setting it up, and people that have not completed their census yet, they can go into the tech mobile and complete their census right then and there. So maybe that would be an opportunity. It would be subjective to specific communities, because I don't see the libraries wanting to go into communities that they don't serve. And I don't know all the libraries that have something like that. But that could be an option. I see Rebecca and Betsy are talking about, providing letters with meal distributions, Meals on Wheels, and the different distributions that are going throughout the whole county right now. That's a great idea to include information.
Yeah, I love that, you guys. I know the census, at least someone I know that delivers in Porter County and Portage, they were giving out census bags, or I'm not sure if there was census information, but he was using a census bag to deliver the food a couple of different trips, and that was purposeful. So obviously our counties could do some purposeful things like that as well. So.
Absolutely. So thank you so much for sharing. This was a great brainstorming session. So we're going to move to the last section, because I think this is the most important section. It's what we all can do together to make sure everyone has the opportunity safely to participate in November's election.
So these are just some action steps that you can take on your own, or if you want to share, this is another good slide to maybe that we'll share out, or if you want to screenshot, but writing your elected officials, and we'll share some specific people that you can write to in just a second. Attend a public meeting or tune into a Zoom one, share it with a friend, invite people. I know there's like often a feature where you can invite people to see an online meeting that you're viewing. Maybe register 5 people to vote from now till October 5th, until that deadline. Make sure all your friends and family are registered, or they need to go on Indiana Voters. This is the next one down, and check their voter registration. If people haven't been voting, if they haven't voted in the last 2 federal elections, they can potentially be moved off the voter rolls. So please go on indianavoters.com, check your own, have your friends and family that are in Indiana also check their own voter registration, and help others get registered. We do have posters. We've produced printed materials in the past. So if you're part of an organization, or if you just would like to volunteer for RISE, if you'd like to hang some posters for us or give out brochures that we've created in the past, please do contact us. Sending election texts, even on your own, even if you're not part of a campaign or organization, just working within your own networks. That's what this is all about, that we can just do these things. We don't have to be part of something already. You can just kind of weave it into your daily life. And I think a lot of the people on this event probably already do. We just wanted to give you a few more things to think about. But share 10 informational posts on social media a month from now until Election Day. So if you want to even do 5, then you could be a rock star too. But I know we share a lot of great things about like how to register to vote, or how to apply for the absentee ballot, like how to find your county election office. So just giving people those initial steps, and then they can take it the next step further. That's kind of all that we're hoping that this is all about. And here are some specific folks that you can write to. Again, another good place if you want to screenshot. I know Miranda's going to share this all out with you too. But our county, you know, each county has an election board, and you can get in touch with them. So you can call them. And in Lake County, we've listed, the assistant director puts out her email address. So if you have comments before the next election board meeting, and we do try to share when we see an agenda posted or some kind of notification that the meeting's happening, we do try to share that on Rise's Facebook page. The Indiana Election Commission does take public comment through email. So next you see elections at iec.in.gov. Contacting your own state legislators. If you're not sure who they are, just go to this website there. And that's IGA stands for Indiana General Assembly. And you can find the listing of your local legislators, your state rep and your state senator. And then also contacting our governor, Eric Holcomb. So there's a phone number, and you can find contact information for him. There's kind of on the website, I believe it's just like a place where you would write in kind of a box, a kind of a form that you would fill in if you have a comment or a question. And then just helping fellow voters in your networks and other organizations you're part of. We are here to share with you. If you would like us to give a presentation to a group that you're part of, or like I said, we have awesome brochures that Miranda has created in the past with a lot of this information. If you'd like to hang posters or flyers up for us, let us know. This is all nonpartisan, just general information that we produce, just trying to help get the word out. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, we're on Instagram. I just added Instagram to my phone, woohoo. So Miranda's email is at the bottom, but please, sharing some of our posts out on social media is a great thing to do. You have the voice to help make things change.
So we are at the point for our last conversation, and I really want to target some of these things that are being talked about on the chat about helping individuals register to vote. How do you go about doing that? And I will say, giving a little tidbit of what we're in the works of doing. And I think this will help with a lot of the things that are being brought up on the chat. So I believe it was Elizabeth brought up a comment about the process to submit your absentee application, since there is the 12 reasons on the form right now. We are currently in the process. I created the script yesterday. We are in the process of creating a how-to video of how to digitally submit, as well as how to submit your paper application. So we should be launching that early next week. So look for that. So that will help and share that out. We are also in the process of working on another series of events, and that will also target helping someone register to vote. That will target some of those very specific positions on November's ballot of what do these people do for me. We're, like I said, we're in the works of doing that. So I think that will help with a lot of things, and all those things will take place. We'll start the series of events in mid-July. So coming up in a couple weeks. But getting back to the chat, would anyone like to share anything about what do you see missing in your community to help voters? I would really like to see some conversation around, we have all these wonderfully engaged individuals, specifically young people, going to these very well organized protests to engage around a very serious issue, and how can we utilize that momentum to make sure that they are all going to the polls also, because most of them are able to vote. So how can we take that momentum within our communities and shift it to election information?
when I would say, when there's going to be a decent sized protest or any type of community involvement organization going on, maybe set up some type, or be out there with a table about voting, and even be able to tell people how to register, but definitely stress the importance of voting at those protests.
Absolutely.
This is Betsy. I don't know I have to admit it. I don't know. I don't see a raise hand feature. So so I just want to agree that you're absolutely right, Judy. So I went to the rally in Griffith, and they actually there was a voter registration table set up. But I mean, to have Rise there too, I'd be happy to sit there and hand out stuff, or register voters. So I think that's a great idea. I don't think it's corny at all. I think it's a great idea.
Absolutely. And I will say, traditionally, I believe last year, just during the summertime, I think we attended like 15 events. And that's traditionally what we do. Betsy's one of them. We have a wonderful set of volunteers, and we're always looking for more, because outside of volunteers, it's just myself and Sarah. And we can't go to everything. We absolutely love to give you whatever materials you need. But if you are ever at an event, even if it has really no correlation to voting, have a few flyers in your back pocket, have a few brochures in your back pocket that you could pass out to people. Because a lot of times that's what makes the difference. So yes, Betsy, I agree. I think we don't traditionally focus on voter registration. We produce the information of how you can go about it, but traditionally that's why we partner with the league a lot. So we'll do a shared table of, we're here passing out information and having the conversations of why this is so important and what these people do for you and how you can get engaged. And then the league is there to physically do that voter registration. But we absolutely have the resources if someone is willing to go out and pass out some brochures and have the information of physically registering people. We absolutely can help you do that. And yes, Betsy, the Legacy office is open right now. We are not allowing people to physically come into the office, but if you're hinting that you'd like to pick some stuff up, I absolutely can meet you in the parking lot.
Love it.
Brandon does have his hand raised. So Brandon, if you would like to unmute yourself, feel free to do so.
So I was gonna say, so to have like the positive energy from like the recent protesting, what I tell my friends that are non-voters but they do protesting is that if you're not happy how our city leaders or elected officials, how they're doing or performing, one way to change that is to vote them out and vote someone in, especially when it comes to protesting, like with the Black Lives Matter, police brutality. I always tell them that the mayor is in charge. Well, in the city, the mayor is in charge of, I think it's like they appoint a deputy sheriff or something, or chief of police, like in Hammond. And I said, and they're the ones that they tell their police officers how to respond to incidents or how to interact with citizens. So that's why I always tell people that if you have this energy to protest, the one way to actually change it is actually going to the booth and voting people in that can make those changes.
That's a great.
Very well said. Thank you.
Bill did ask the question, how do we get brochures? You ask and I will give them to you. I do need to make a few updates to the brochure, but I can do that. I mean, I will definitely get it done ASAP if people are wanting them now. We do have kind of an in-between election brochure that's more just generalized information. Once we get closer to an election, it's very specific to the races you will see on your ballot. It's descriptions of what these individuals do for you. It's important dates. It's how to properly make sure that you are ready to register and you're ready to vote. I will say I'd be happy to send you a PDF of it, Bill. I do traditionally print them on 8.5 by 14 paper, so it does have 4 folds in it. But if you would like a PDF version of it, I can modify it a hair so the digital version is easier to utilize.
Yeah, and just so everybody understands, Miranda is the guru with all of this, putting these phenomenal stuff together. We brainstorm and get all the information in there for you, but the handout pieces like the brochure and stuff, we weren't able to really utilize a lot of that through this past primary, but we do have those resources in our back pocket, and that's, you know, our grant funding is allocated to those things, so we can certainly use printing to do some printing, and then, you know, if you have other resources or if we get other donors or things like that, if there's a larger batch, but we certainly can print some for you and help you get what you need. So just ask and we will get what you need. And we even often create things for organizations if you have an idea, or you know, we can tweak our graphics or tweak something sometimes to work with what you're doing.
Absolutely. And what I will actually do with the follow-up email, I will include a Google Drive folder that has all of our current graphics in it. It probably will not have the full-on brochure because the brochure is a very large document that I just don't think is good to share digitally, because if it's not folded, it doesn't make much sense. So I will share all of the current graphics we have going on our social media, everything like that. I'll put it in a shared folder for you all, and you can utilize it. Please feel free to share it out. And as Sarah said, if there's something very specific that you're looking for, just for an example, say you do want to focus on senior citizens and you would like a very specific flyer or graphic that can be distributed to the senior citizen centers, I'd be happy to do that. That's really the sole one of the sole things of RISE is we pride ourselves on modifying based on the needs of the communities. So absolutely anything you all need, please feel free to ask and we will do our best to get everything to you. With that, my email was on the previous side, my legacy email, but we do have a general contact at RISE email. If you're not already following us on social media, please do so, because then you can easily just share those posts with the text even that we put above each post. Super easy to utilize. But with that being said, I will get all of the materials that I currently have. I will get that to you. But on that, Sarah, if you want to say any final comments, but
Yeah.
we're on time, so I want to be mindful of everyone's time.
Yep. Thank you so much, everybody. Everybody was so engaged, and we really appreciate the comments that you're making in the chat. And if you have questions that we didn't get to, I'm sure Miranda's going to do her best to. I know there was a couple things, and it's hard for me to kind of write while I'm leading some of this, and I want to follow up with some of you. So absolutely, we will follow up with you, and anything you need, please do reach out to us. You know, our Facebook inbox. If you have a suggestion or a comment. One thing I did want to mention is if you're uncertain about reaching out to your elected officials or the election board and you want to run something past, especially me, that's kind of what I do. And there's a lot of you even on this conversation that I've helped with that. So if you know someone that's new to writing an elected official or making their voice heard with something that happened with the election, I do want to make sure more people are reaching out to the right governmental body or person that can maybe take that next step. So please, if you want to run something past, whether it's an email, you know, something that you've written, we're here to help. Yes. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much. Have a great evening.